Welcome, my name is Lyn Gitau. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, in Africa. Thank you so much, GatherVerse, for giving me this amazing opportunity to share my perspective of what it looks like to be in the metaverse when you are in Africa. Allow me to tell a story of what it looks like. Being in Africa means you have to be diverse. Diversity is our way of living. In a continent of over 55 countries with over 2,000 ethnic groups, diversity has to be part of our living. That is our story. And sad thing about the reality is that people think Africa is a country. People think Africa is full of hunger, poverty, and that we just live in the jungle. However, when it comes to technology, we see it as an opportunity for us to tell our stories. That is where the metaverse and all emerging technologies come in. Another thing about Africa we can't ignore is its young population. We are rich when it comes to human resources, raw resources, whatever, everything in Africa, we are rich when it comes to that. But however, the biggest problem is how do we harness these young populace? How do we harness the power of technology to teach these young population how to create an income, educate themselves, and tell their stories to the world? We only have one way. Technology, it's our answer. Currently, the median age for Africa is 19 to 20 years old. And we all know the metaverse right now, the main target audience, the users of the future metaverse, it's not the millennials, it's not the boomers. The majority users of the metaverse will be the Gen Zs. Where are the majority of Gen Zs in Africa? Then how do we bridge the gap between letting know and giving Africa the opportunity to also shape the future iteration of the metaverse? It's only through technology. What I do, I have an organization called Metaversations. I am also the founding member of the African Meta Club. What we do is we educate the African continent about the metaverse and the emerging technologies and how we can use these technologies to improve our lives. Recently, we held our first African Metaverse conference. It was overwhelmed with a lot of hunger for young people to learn about the metaverse. They were curious to experience the virtual reality sets. They were curious to know what is augmented reality. They were curious to know how do I position myself in this future iteration of the internet. The hunger is there. The willingness to learn the skills on what is needed to position ourselves in the future iteration of the internet is there. The worst trend that Africa has experienced for decades and centuries, we have always been left behind. First industrial revolution, second industrial revolution. We were at some point, Africa was the pie that everyone used to scramble for. Everyone wanted to get into Africa. What can I get from Africa? The scramble and fight for Africa. But never has there been a time when Africa has had the opportunity to also be at the table and shape the next future iteration of the next industrial revolution. And that is why the metaverse, the emerging technologies, Web3, blockchain, AI, for us as an African continent is not just an emerging tech where we just want to appear as gurus, we want to appear as the tech, the experts and everything. For us, this technology means changing the course of how we have been shaped to be. This means that we now get a chance to say or shape our own world. We have always found a world that has been shaped for us. The education system, it's borrowed from our colonizers. Some of our languages, we have never had this opportunity to shape our own things, and that is what Metaverse and technology is offering us. For us, it's a second chance. It's a chance to us saying, hi Africa, here we are giving you another chance. Be part of this next industrial revolution. What does the Metaverse mean for Africa? First of all, the contribution of the Metaverse to the African GDP. The Metaverse will contribute to 1.8 growth of sub-Saharan Africa. That means our economy has grown, employment opportunities. That means our world as an African continent would have made progress. Number two, the Metaverse will transform how we tell our stories. For the longest time ever, we have people telling African stories who don't even belong to Africa. We have a saying that says, if a story is one-sided, it's probably a lie. And majority of what is depicted about Africa by mainstream media, by other sources from Western sources and every other sources that tells about Africa, majority of them are half-truths. Half-truths are nothing more but lies. We need to be given as an opportunity for us Africans to tell our own stories to the universe. And for us, the best way to do it is in the Metaverse, our own universe. If I can get a chance to get into the Metaverse where I can interact with as many individuals as I can from various sides of the world, I'll be able to tell my stories with no restrictions, raw as how it is, not as how the mainstream media wants to tell our African stories, not how other people want to benefit from telling our own story. We own our own stories, and Metaverse is one of the best ways we can tell our own African stories. Another thing for Africa when it comes to the Metaverse, we see it as the best way to improve our education systems. One of the greatest challenges we have in Africa is poor education. Education is a human right. But as a human right to Africa, not everyone, not every kid is accessing quality education. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are from the world, when you come to Africa, you will realize education is also a basic need, but unfortunately, not everyone can afford the best quality education. The Metaverse will transform this kind of education from primary level to college to university by giving us immersive experience. We don't have to rely on old textbooks that were written decades ago. We don't have to rely on diagrams that don't even really portray what the aim of the lesson aims to teach. We have subjects like science, we have subjects like geography, we have students pursuing medicine, we have students pursuing architecture. All these people have been using traditional ways of learning. You cannot compare someone who has learned in a traditional way to someone who is maybe in the Western side or the Germany side or China, whatever country they are, advanced country they are. You cannot compare these two students. Maybe the one from the Western got better quality education, that used a lot of demonstrations, they used a lot of 3D pictures, 3D images, and a lot of practicals. But when we boil down to Africa, we only have tools like projectors, we only have tools like textbooks, which are still old school and don't really give students immersive. They don't really give students immersive experiences to get into what they're learning. Another thing about the African market on regards to the Metaverse, for us, the Metaverse is about sharing our culture, our heritage to the world. As I said earlier, diversity is our way of life. We don't have diversity. We are the diversity. coming from different ethnic groups, different cultural backgrounds. We are able to preserve them and keep them and share it to the world via technology, via blockchain, via NFTs. For us, actually, NFTs are not just images or pictures of Bored Ape yards that are based on hype and clubs and community. For us, NFTs is us telling our stories. It's our African artists getting their work published and getting the full copyright for their work. It's us as it's a tool for us as an African continent to preserve our heritage, our culture, whatever we do via blockchain, where we can own it, no one can alter it, and it can be left there for generations and generations to come. That is one of the main aim of the club we are in. It's called the African Meta Club, the first DAO in Africa that uses Metaverse and NFTs to preserve our culture and our heritage that we're really proud of. We as Africans, we have always felt, and it's a sad reality, that we are not heard outside the world. No one gets a lot of Africans. We don't have a lot of Africans traveling, exploring the world. For some reasons, because of the travel expenditure, visas, passports, getting visas and passports in Africa is not easy. There are elite people who can afford visas. They're easy to get. They are diplomats. But majority of Africans don't get to see how the world looked like. We don't have the big exposure. We are just locked up in our own universe, which is not quite very impressive. We need to see how the world works. How do people do their things? How do the rest of the world interact? What is happening? And for us, technology in the metaverse is what will open us to the world. We have a lot of people assuming that every African is black, every African, we are like, we look alike, every African wears a Masai shuka. You know, such kind of perspectives that have been portrayed by mainstream medias. But for us, being expounded to the world, being able to see what is happening in the world, with just a press of a button, for us, that is more than what we can desire when it comes to exploring the world. The problem we have in Africa that only technology like the metaverse and all emerging tech can solve is the problem of manufacturing. By now, we all know Africa is the wealthiest continent when it comes to resources, when it comes to nature, when it comes to culture and heritage. We are the richest. What makes Africa poor? Despite of having all the gems, the precious gems, name them all, the diamonds from Botswana, the gold, cobalt, all these precious minerals, they are in Africa. But as an African continent, we've never felt the impact of having such wonderful resources and not knowing how to utilize them. That's because of one thing: we don't have the skill set to manufacture. We don't have the skill set to turn these raw materials into usable products. When we bring technologies, emerging techs like the metaverse, we can learn how to manufacture our own materials. We can learn how to build and construct our own roads. We can learn how to use our iron through demonstrations, through immersive experiences with AR, VR. Can you imagine how big Africa would be right now if we knew how to manufacture, if we knew how to use our cobalt, if we knew how to use our copper, our diamonds? Africa would be the Wakanda that you see in the Black Panther. Black Panther actually is just a movie that portrays what Africa would look like if we knew how to utilize our resources, had strong leadership capabilities. That is what the African dream looks like. Just to add and emphasize on the most crucial and the most important part of this, the 7 standards of the Metaverse by Christopher. They summarize the need of Africa to be included in the Metaverse. We don't want to be left behind. And I'll go to the first standard, humanity. For a very good Metaverse, for the Metaverse that we're dreaming of as humanity to come to reality, we need to include all, and I mean all, including us, people in Africa. We need to include all races, all diverse groups. If we want to shape the Metaverse that we want, we need to get the opportunity as Africans to be part of it. Another thing is learning about the emerging technologies is a basic human right for now. It is. In this current century, everyone needs to get the education of what is happening in the world, what is transforming, what is the future iteration of the internet. And to foster this, we need to bring education to Africa. Tell us what is happening. Invest in African startups that are doing with emerging tech. Our work is to educate. Some are creating virtual reality experiences. We need to spread this gospel to as much as we can here in Africa. Education is very key to the growth of the Metaverse. And last but not least, equality, the next standard, equality. We need to learn about the Metaverse regardless of the status quo, regardless of the gender, regardless of the race. Everyone has the right to learn about the Metaverse and partake of it. Africa has been making huge strides when it comes to adopting blockchain and emerging tech. And for us, when we are adopting this kind of technologies, it's not just about us looking fitting in. For us, it's about using this technology to solve our current problems. Actually, in my opinion, the full realization of Web3 and emerging technologies will only come to pass if Africa is involved, because majority of these technologies solve problems that Africa has. Right now, blockchain and cryptocurrency is one of the biggest trends in Africa. In my country, Kenya, where I am, it is estimated that over 4 million people in my country are adapted to cryptocurrency. And the numbers are growing daily. Look at the African startups dealing with DeFi, fintech, AI, robotics. They are growing daily. Recently, in December, around December, November 2022, a Nigerian startup unveiled their first robot. The robot is feminine in nature and of color, someone who has a color like mine. Such things are happening in Africa. A lot of labs that are coming up and they're funding African startups that are dealing with Web3, blockchain, and emerging tech. I would urge you, friends, join Africa. Let's create the Metaverse together. And I will say it in Kiswahili, tujenge pamoja. Thank you so much.